Archangel Michael. The name alone stirs something deep within the soul. For centuries, believers have whispered his name in prayers of protection, drawn courage from his battles in the heavens, and looked to him as a symbol of divine strength in times of spiritual war. But who exactly is this mighty being who leads God's armies? What does the Bible truly say about him? And why do his actions echo across both heaven and earth? Today, you're not just watching another Bible story explained. You're stepping into a realm where celestial wars are real, where unseen battles shape the destiny of nations, and where one angel stands tall, not for his own glory, but for the glory of the one whose name he bears. You see, the name Michael is more than a title. It's a question. Who is like God? It's not meant to be answered, only revered. It's a declaration, a heavenly challenge to all forces of evil, a reminder that no power, no pride, no principality can ever match the greatness of our God. Maybe you've read about him in the book of Daniel, heard his name thundered in Revelation, or glimpsed his humility in the small book of Jude. But what if I told you there are hidden truths, divine secrets, about Archangel Michael that most Christians overlook? Truths that not only reveal who he is, but reveal something about you too. Because the battles he fights aren't just ancient stories. They mirror the ones you're facing now. Fear, darkness, uncertainty, all very real enemies. And just like in heaven, you're not alone. There is still a warrior standing in the gap. There is still hope shining through the fire. In this video, we'll uncover 7 powerful truths about Archangel Michael, God's fighting angel. We'll go deeper than the Sunday school versions. We'll uncover mysteries tucked inside Scripture, compare Michael to Lucifer and Gabriel, and understand why his presence always signals a divine turning point. So take a deep breath, let your heart quiet, and get ready. Because what you're about to learn might just change the way you see spiritual warfare forever. And perhaps, just perhaps, it'll change the way you see your place in the battle. Let's begin. There is a sacred weight in names, especially in the Bible. Every name tells a story, reflects a truth, and often points to destiny. And among all the angelic beings mentioned in Scripture, one name resounds with unique authority, reverence, and awe: Michael. Not just a name whispered in moments of fear or invoked during times of war, but a name that asks a question so profound it silences both heaven and hell. Who is like God? That's what Michael means in Hebrew, Mikhail, a rhetorical question, a divine challenge, a declaration written into the very core of his being. It is not a name that seeks applause or fame. It is a name that bows low before the throne of God while standing tall against the forces of darkness. You see, Michael's very existence points away from himself and toward the one true King. While other angels might carry names that describe God's attributes, like Gabriel, meaning God is my strength, or Raphael, meaning God heals, Michael's name doesn't just describe, it confronts. It's as if every time he steps onto the battlefield, every demon, every principality, every ruler of the air is forced to reckon with the reality behind his name. There is none like the Lord our God. This contrast becomes even more powerful when we remember another name: Lucifer. The morning star, once clothed in beauty, full of wisdom, perfect in his ways, until pride was found in him. While Lucifer said in his heart, "I will ascend. I will make myself like the Most High," Michael's name stood firm as a rebuke. Who is like God? That alone reveals something sacred, Michael's name is not self-centered. It's self-emptying. It carries within it the posture of humility, the spirit of worship, the unwavering allegiance to God's supremacy. And that, perhaps, is what makes him the perfect warrior, because he doesn't fight for power, but from faithfulness. Have you ever met someone whose mere presence reminds you of God's greatness? Not because they boast, but because they shine with quiet conviction. That's the spirit of Michael, a living reminder that even the mightiest angel bows before the throne. And that's a lesson we all need, especially in today's world that celebrates self, power, and control. Michael reminds us that true strength begins with surrender. Real glory is never in the spotlight, but in the shadows where obedience is forged. Maybe that's why God entrusted him with some of the most sacred missions in Scripture, not because he sought greatness, but because his very name deflected it toward heaven. So next time you say the name Michael, pause for a moment. Let it echo in your soul. Let it remind you that you don't need to be the strongest, the loudest, or the most important. You just need to remember the one who is. Who is like God? No one. And in that truth, we find both strength and safety. Now that we've seen how even Michael's name is a declaration of divine allegiance, let's follow him into the battleground where this truth comes alive. Because Michael's name isn't just spoken in the heavens, it's proven in war. Long before the dramatic battles of Revelation, long before the dragon was cast down from heaven, Michael was already fighting in the shadows. We meet him not on a glorious battlefield, but in a quiet, desperate moment in the book of Daniel, a book filled with dreams, visions, and divine messages that shaped the future of nations. Daniel, a prophet exiled in Babylon, is fasting and praying for understanding. For 3 weeks he mourns, seeking a word from God, and then finally an angel arrives with a message. But something astonishing is revealed. The angel had been delayed, not because of human hindrance, but because of a spiritual battle taking place beyond what eyes could see. The angel says in Daniel 10:13, "But the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me." Pause there. This isn't just poetic language. This is a glimpse into the invisible war, the cosmic chessboard where angels and demons contend over the destinies of kings and the prayers of saints. Michael doesn't appear for show. He appears to break a blockade, to intervene when darkness tried to silence light. Imagine that. An angel sent by God, carrying an answer to Daniel's prayer, was stopped by a demonic force referred to as the Prince of Persia. This isn't a human prince. It's a territorial spirit, a principality that had influence over an entire empire. And the only one strong enough, authorized enough to break through was Michael. This scene is staggering. It means that sometimes when our prayers seem delayed, it's not because God hasn't heard, but because a war is being fought in the unseen realm. And when that war reaches its fiercest moments, Michael steps in. Think about that in your own life. Have you ever prayed for something with all your heart, only to feel like nothing changed? You fasted, you cried, you waited, and still silence. Could it be that the answer is on its way, but a battle rages in the heavens? Michael teaches us that God doesn't ignore your cry. He dispatches help. He sends answers. And if the enemy dares to interfere, God sends Michael, the warrior prince, to cut through the darkness and deliver what was promised. In Daniel 10:21, The angel says something even more intimate. No one supports me against them except Michael, your prince. Michael isn't just a general in God's army. He's your prince. He belongs to the people of God. He stands for them. He stands for you. That word, your prince, means something. It means you're not forgotten. You're not defenseless. You're not without help. Even when you can't see it, even when you feel alone in the battle, heaven has assigned its fiercest warrior to fight on your behalf. And that's not the only place we see it. Daniel 12:1 says, "At that time Michael, the great prince who protects your people, will arise." The moment of greatest distress, when history reaches its boiling point, is the moment Michael stands up. When the world shakes, he doesn't retreat. He rises. You might be wondering, what does that mean for me? I'm not a prophet like Daniel. I'm not in exile. I don't see angels. But friend, don't underestimate your prayers. Don't dismiss the silence, because in the stillness something is moving, and if the enemy resists, Michael is coming. And even more powerful than that, the battles he fights aren't for victory. They're from victory. Michael doesn't wonder if he'll win. He knows who he serves. His sword swings not in fear, but in faith. So when you face your battles, those hidden struggles, those midnight wars in your mind, remember Michael. Remember the one who came when the message was blocked. Remember the one who stands for the people of God. And ask yourself, as Michael's name still echoes in eternity, who is like God? The answer will always be the same: no one. And that's why you never fight alone. Let's journey further, because Michael's presence doesn't end in Daniel. His sword is drawn again in the final war, the battle that decides the fate of heaven and earth. And once more he leads not with pride, but with power that comes from above. In the final chapter of Daniel's prophetic visions, the curtain lifts on a moment so profound, so terrifying, and yet so full of hope that it echoes all the way into the final pages of Scripture. It's not a time of peace or clarity. It's a time of distress, unlike anything the world has ever seen. Nations tremble, people despair, and the earth seems to groan under the weight of judgment. But just when the darkness deepens, Michael arises. Daniel 12:1 says, "At that time Michael, the great prince who protects your people, will arise. There will be a time of distress such as has not happened from the beginning of nations until then. But at that time, your people, everyone whose name is found written in the book, will be delivered." It's easy to rush past these words, but let's stop and unpack what's really being said. Michael is not simply fighting a random battle. He is arising at the moment when God's people are most vulnerable. The phrase, "your people," refers specifically to those who belong to God, and even more specifically, those whose names are found in the book of life. This isn't poetic metaphor. The book of life is a recurring theme throughout Scripture. It appears in Psalms, in Philippians, and most powerfully in the book of Revelation. It is said to hold the names of those who belong to God, those marked not by their perfection, but by His grace. So when Michael arises, he's not doing so for a nameless crowd. He's standing up for you. If your name is written in that book, He knows it, He sees it, and He will not let it be blotted out without a fight. That's what makes Michael not only a warrior, but a defender, not just of Israel, but of eternal identity. In the chaos of end-time events, when the pressure is unbearable and the forces of evil seem to prevail, Michael rises up as a heavenly witness to God's faithfulness. He ensures that those whom God has marked for salvation will not be forgotten, no matter how fierce the fire becomes. Let's make this real. Maybe you've been in a season where everything feels like it's shaking, where nothing makes sense, where the distress Daniel described doesn't feel so far away. It's in those moments when we need the assurance that there is a warrior standing on our behalf, defending what is written over our lives, even when we can't see it. One of the greatest lies the enemy whispers is this: you've been forgotten. But Michael's role in Daniel 12 crushes that lie. You are remembered. You are protected. You are written in a book that no demon can erase. And Michael, the great prince, the guardian of the faithful, rises precisely when your name is on the line. Now, from Daniel's visions, we move forward in time, to a moment where Michael doesn't just arise, he leads heaven's charge. Because in the book of Revelation, Michael does what no other angel could do. He casts the enemy out of heaven. The scene is apocalyptic. It's not a fairy tale. It's not symbolic fluff. It's war, the kind that shakes the very heavens. Revelation 12:7 begins with this thunderous moment. Then war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back. This is no ordinary angelic appearance. This is Michael in full command. The warrior prince now steps into his ultimate role, commander of heaven's army, no longer just intervening in hidden spiritual blockades or protecting God's people from the shadows. Now he is front and center, leading the hosts of heaven into battle against the dragon, a creature the Bible explicitly names as Satan. It's crucial to realize something here. Satan still had access to heaven. Even after his fall from glory, he retained a voice in the heavenly court, as seen in the book of Job. He stood as an accuser, pointing out the failures of humanity, questioning the faithfulness of believers, seeking legal ground to sow chaos. But here, in this climactic chapter, the time comes for heaven to say, enough. And who delivers that blow? Michael. The scripture continues. But he was not strong enough, and they lost their place in heaven. The great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil, or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to the earth, and his angels with him. Revelation 12:8-9. Michael doesn't negotiate. He doesn't rebuke quietly. He evicts. His authority is divine. His mission is final. And the result is eternal. The accuser is thrown down, barred from ever entering heaven's courts again. The war in heaven is won, not by numbers, not by strategy, but by the power of God flowing through his most trusted warrior. What does this mean for us? Everything. It means that the war has already been decided, that the enemy who once had access to accuse you before God has been cast down. He no longer stands in the courtroom. He no longer has an audience before the judge. His voice has been silenced. Yes, he still roams the earth. Yes, the battle on this side of eternity is still real. But the verdict has already been rendered. And it was Michael's sword that sealed it. Some people fear the book of Revelation. They avoid reading it, thinking it's all doom and destruction. But tucked within its fiercest chapter is a message of hope. Evil does not get the last word. The enemy does not keep his throne. The people of God are not without a defender. Michael is proof of that. He is the sword in God's hand. The proof that even heaven fights for you. And when you face your own dragons, whether fear, addiction, shame, or despair, Remember this truth. They have already been defeated in the heavens. The battle you fight today is not for victory, but from victory. Michael has already led the charge. Satan has already been cast down, and the same power that empowered Michael to fight now strengthens you to stand. So don't give up. Don't back down. The commander of heaven's army has gone before you, and his banner still waves in triumph. Next, we'll enter one of the most curious and revealing moments in all of Scripture. A quiet encounter between Michael and the devil over the body of Moses. A moment that reveals not just power, but profound humility. Not all battles in the Bible are fought with swords and flames. Some take place in silence, in whispers, in spaces so sacred even the mightiest angels tread carefully. And one such moment, brief, mysterious, yet deeply powerful, is found in the tiny book of Jude. It's only one verse, one quiet verse. But it reveals more about the character of Archangel Michael than some entire chapters. Jude 1:9 says, "But even the Archangel Michael, when he was disputing with the devil about the body of Moses, did not himself dare to condemn him for slander, but said, 'The Lord rebuke you.'" Let that sink in. This is Michael, God's fiercest warrior, the one who led heaven's armies, the one who cast out Satan from the throne room. And yet, when facing the devil in this moment, he doesn't argue, doesn't insult, doesn't flex his authority. He simply steps back and calls on the name above all names, "The Lord rebuke you." This tells us something profound about spiritual authority. Michael had every right, every reason, every credential to take matters into his own hands. But he didn't, because true power isn't loud, it's obedient. True strength knows when to stand aside and let God speak. You might wonder, why would Satan want the body of Moses? The Bible doesn't fully explain. Some Jewish traditions suggest that Satan wanted to claim Moses' body to tempt Israel into idolatry, perhaps by turning his tomb into a shrine. Others believe the devil sought legal grounds to accuse Moses, whose temper once caused him to strike the rock. But the deeper point isn't why, it's how Michael responded. He didn't escalate the argument. He didn't trade accusations. He didn't even engage. He relied entirely on God's authority. And in doing so, Michael gave us a blueprint for spiritual warfare. You see, we often think we have to fight every battle ourselves. We craft arguments. We defend our name. We confront, correct, and control. But what if the strongest thing you could say isn't a speech, but a surrender? What if the most powerful words in a moment of darkness are the ones that invoke God's justice, not your own? The Lord rebuke you. Those 4 words change everything. Let me ask you, have you ever been in a situation where someone slandered you, disrespected you, or tried to steal what was sacred in your life? Your peace, your calling, your joy, your identity. The temptation is always to respond, to fight back with human logic or emotion. But Michael's example tells us, you don't always have to respond with your voice. You just need to trust the Lord to speak for you. And that's not weakness. That's strength. Strength through humility. We live in a culture that praises the loud, the bold, the unapologetic. But heaven honors those who bow, those who yield, those who let God fight their battles. Michael, the mightiest of angels, teaches us the most Christ-like of lessons. The one who kneels in reverence will always stand in victory. So the next time the enemy comes to accuse you, remind yourself of this scene. Speak not from fear, but from faith. The Lord rebuke you, and trust that heaven hears and answers. But Michael's humility doesn't mean he retreats from battle. In fact, sometimes the fiercest wars are the ones fought in secret, in silence, behind the scenes. And that brings us to a side of Michael few talk about. Not as the hero in the spotlight, but as the quiet rescuer working where no one sees. We often imagine angels as radiant figures bursting through the clouds, delivering miracles in full display. But not all divine interventions look like parted seas or burning bushes. Some come like a whisper, like a presence in the hallway of your home when you feel alone, like a peace that makes no sense in the middle of the storm. And that's where Michael works too, in the unseen. Remember Daniel 10? Before Michael defeats the dragon in Revelation, before he protects the names in the book of life, he shows up in the most hidden of ways. An unnamed angel is sent to deliver a message to Daniel. But the message is delayed, not because of God's slowness, but because of spiritual resistance. A demonic prince, a dark power of Persia, blocks the messenger for 21 days. That's 3 weeks of silence, 3 weeks of Daniel wondering if heaven had gone quiet. But then, help arrives. Michael, the warrior of heaven, steps in, not with fanfare or trumpet blasts, but with force strong enough to break the enemy's grip. He clears the path so that the angel can continue, and Daniel receives the revelation meant for him all along. And here's the truth many of us need today. Michael fights battles you never even knew were happening. He intervenes where your eyes can't reach. He battles darkness before it touches your soul. And more than that, he often fights not for applause, but for your peace. You might be facing something right now that makes no sense, doors that won't open, delays that don't match your prayers, pressure that seems to come from nowhere. And perhaps you're thinking, where is God? Why hasn't he answered? But what if the answer is already on the way, and Michael is just clearing the road? We so often measure God's faithfulness by what we can see. But in the spiritual realm, what's invisible is often what matters most. Michael's unseen rescue reminds us, God is always working, even when heaven feels silent. And sometimes the most miraculous intervention doesn't look like a parting Red Sea. It looks like a spirit of fear leaving your room at night, like a weight lifting from your heart when you didn't even know you were under attack. The healing power of Michael's presence is not just in his sword. It's in the peace he brings by winning battles behind the veil. There's a reason Scripture calls God Yahweh Sabaoth, the Lord of hosts, the God of angel armies. And Michael stands at the front of those hosts, not just as a fighter, but as a deliverer, a helper, a bringer of healing. So if you've been waiting for a breakthrough, if you've been walking through a desert wondering if anyone fights for you, take heart. Michael fights in silence. And silence does not mean absence. He may not speak your language, but heaven hears him. And through him, God is moving on your behalf in ways far deeper than what your senses can perceive. Next, we'll explore what makes Michael more than just a fighter. We'll see how he becomes a prophetic sign, revealing the very rhythm of God's end-time plan, and what that means for your destiny. In the great symphony of Scripture, certain names only play during climactic movements, when the tempo quickens, when heaven leans in, when the earth holds its breath. Michael is one of those names. He doesn't appear casually. His presence is not routine. He shows up at divine turning points, at moments when history bends and eternity draws near. And when he does, Something sacred is always shifting. That's why Michael is not just a warrior or even a protector. He is, in many ways, a prophetic signpost, a signal that God's final plan is moving forward. Throughout the Bible, his appearances are strategically placed. In Daniel, he rises when Israel is at the edge of exile and judgment. In Revelation, he draws his sword when heaven can no longer tolerate the enemy's accusations. In Jude, he stands watch over the body of Moses, a man who symbolized the law and covenant. Michael arrives whenever something is about to change forever. Theologians have long wrestled with Michael's role in eschatology, the theology of the end times. Some even ask, could Michael be more than just an angel? Could he be a pre-incarnate form of Christ himself? While mainstream Christian doctrine separates Jesus and Michael, the question itself highlights how closely Michael's mission mirrors Christ's authority. For example, 1 Thessalonians 4:16 says, "For the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trumpet of God." Think about that. The voice of the archangel is linked with the return of Jesus and the resurrection of the dead. Though the text doesn't name Michael directly, it begs the question, why is the voice of an archangel tied to the rapture of the church? What kind of angel has that kind of voice? And in Revelation 12, when Satan is finally cast down from heaven, it is Michael who leads the charge, not Gabriel, not an unnamed host, but Michael. As if God is declaring, the time has come, the battle line is drawn, my angel of finality is here. Michael represents the divine countdown. When he moves, prophetic clocks begin to tick louder. The unseen realm shifts. It's as though God has reserved Michael's mission for the chapters where decisions must be made, where destinies are sealed, where eternity breaks into time. And what does that mean for us? It means Michael's presence in Scripture is a call to readiness. He doesn't bring comfort messages or philosophical debates. He brings a sword, a trumpet, a final word. He shows up when delay is no longer an option, when the people of God must stand or fall in their faith. In that sense, Michael isn't just part of the end-time story. He calls us into it. Maybe you've been feeling the urgency in your spirit lately, a stirring, a sense that the world is shifting beneath your feet. You're not imagining it. The spiritual realm is alive with movement. Prophecies are aligning. And when we begin to see echoes of Michael's pattern, battles intensifying, truth under siege, nations in turmoil, we must ask ourselves, are we awake? Are we prepared? Are our names written in the book he defends? Because make no mistake, Michael will rise again. And when he does, it will be no ordinary moment. It will be the signal that God's plan is nearing its final crescendo. But until that day, his legacy calls us to live with watchfulness, to be brave like him, humble like him, steady like him, to remember that the battle belongs to the Lord, and that our job is not to win it alone, but to stand under his authority and fight from victory, not for it. So don't fear what's coming. Don't dread the shaking of the nations, because behind the scenes, there is still an archangel sharpening his blade, waiting for the command of the Most High. And when that trumpet sounds, and heaven opens once more, the world will remember what faithful believers have always known. Michael has risen. God's plan is unfolding, and his people are not forgotten. As we close this journey, we'll return to where we began, not with fear, but with awe. Because the same God who appointed Michael to fight for heaven has appointed grace to fight for you, and that changes everything. There's something remarkable about stepping back and looking at everything we've uncovered together. From the echoing cry of "Who is like God?" to the war in heaven, from the shadows of Daniel's visions to the mighty fall of the dragon in Revelation, the story of Archangel Michael is not just a story of an angel. It is the story of God's unwavering love for his people, expressed through one of his most faithful and powerful warriors. Michael is more than a figure in glowing armor or a name buried in ancient texts. He is a living testimony to the reality that heaven is not silent, that God does not stand still when his people cry out, that every prayer, every moment of despair, every battle we face on earth has a counterpart in the spiritual realm, and that counterpart often bears a sword. He fights for those whose names are written in the book of life, not because they are perfect, but because they are known, loved, redeemed. If you've ever doubted whether your battles mattered to heaven, let Michael's story remind you. They do. Your pain has a warrior. Your silence has an intercessor. Your journey has a divine bodyguard who stands not in front of you, but beside you, ready to shield you, even when you can't see the arrows flying. Perhaps the most beautiful truth about Michael is that he never fights for his own glory. His power does not come from self-exaltation or pride. It flows from his constant surrender to the authority of God. And that's the invitation for all of us today. Not to fight louder, but to trust deeper. Not to rush into every battle swinging, but to stand where heaven says stand. To speak only when the Spirit speaks. To kneel when others run. Because the victories that matter most are not won by might, nor by power, but by the Spirit of the Lord. Archangel Michael's life is a masterclass in divine obedience. He shows us that true strength is found in humility, that real authority comes from submission, and that sometimes the loudest declaration of war is a whisper, "The Lord rebuke you." Maybe today you've been walking through your own battle, silent, exhausting, unseen. Maybe you've prayed and waited and felt the ache of unanswered hope. Take courage. You are not alone. There are angels fighting for you, and one of them is named Michael. If this journey through the scriptures has moved you, inspired you, or simply reminded you of the greatness of God, I want to invite you into something greater. Don't let this be the end of the story. Let it be the beginning of a deeper walk with the Word, a deeper trust in the God who commands angel armies, a deeper awareness that the supernatural is not distant. It's present. It's here. And it's working in your life. If you found this video meaningful, I'd be honored if you would like it. Subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who needs hope, courage, or a reminder that God still sends angels into the lives of his children. Your support helps this message reach more hearts, and more hearts means more awakenings. Maybe even more victories. And if you haven't yet subscribed, consider this your moment. There is so much more to uncover, more mysteries, more battles, more divine truths hidden within the pages of the Bible. We'll continue exploring them together. You might just be one video away from your next revelation. Turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. This isn't just content. It's a calling, and I'm honored to walk this path with you. As we close, let the story of Michael settle deep in your heart. Let his sword remind you of the authority heaven gives to those who stand in truth. Let his silence in Jude teach you that humility is more powerful than argument. Let his rise in Daniel tell you that you are never unprotected. Let his victory in Revelation assure you that evil has already lost. And let his name, his beautiful, defiant, God-glorifying name, who is like God, be the anthem over your life. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for choosing to believe that your story matters to heaven. Until next time, walk boldly, pray deeply, and live like someone heaven is fighting for, because you are, always. Archangel Michael, God's fighting angel, hasn't stopped moving. And neither has the one who sent him.